What is the emotional cycle of change? If you ever feel that you're doing something and you feel like all of a sudden this is the thing I want to do, and actually as you start out, it actually starts to feel a lot harder, you start to feel downhearted and you give up, then don't worry, because you're not alone. This is the emotional cycle of change, and I'm going to explain every step of it and also a way that you can get out of it and conquer it yourself in the end of this episode. Stick around, but first, let's bang out that intro. Ash Borland here, personal branding specialist, helping you build an impactful and profitable personal brand business online. If you're new to the show and it's the first time we've met, be sure to hit the subscribe button to be kept up to date with all the latest personal branding, content marketing, and social selling content to build your brand online. So what we're going to talk about in this episode, we're looking at the emotional cycle of change, and I'm going to explain it in detail. Okay, what is the emotional cycle of change? How is it affecting us? This is what we're going to cover. Now, realistically, the emotional cycle of change is something that we all go through. I actually myself have been going through it right now. The reason why I'm making this video now more than any other time is because I was sat with my wife yesterday eating dinner and we were chatting, and I've said I'm getting overwhelmed and I'm getting lost with what I'm doing. And I was like, actually, wait a minute. I'm stuck in the like never-ending feedback loop of the emotional cycle of change. What am I doing? So I thought, okay, if this is affecting me, it's affecting other people. So I thought, why not make an episode on it for you guys? So that is what we're looking at to talk about in this episode. So realistically, what is the emotional cycle of change? Well, there are 5 stages that you move through. Okay, these are 5 stages you move through when you start something. When you start a new project, a new thing, these are 5 emotional stages that you will go through while you adapt to some new behaviors. Okay? While you adapt to these new behaviors, these are the 5 emotional things you will go through, and it's absolutely normal. Most people do this. Everybody does this. Now, these 5 stages are quite funny. They're quite interesting. And the reality with them, though, is that actually, while we move through them, if we're aware of it, it makes our life a lot easier. If we're unaware of it, you'll just be stuck in what we call, which I'm going to cover at the end of the episode, what we call a negative feedback loop, which is never ending, over and over again. So what are the 5 stages? Well, the 5 stages are actually this. So I'll tell you about them now. So the 5 stages you have of this thing is as follows. We've got the first stage, which is uninformed optimism, which that is stage 1. Then we have, and I'll break them down in more detail, of course, but uninformed optimism. We then move into informed pessimism. We then move into the valley of despair. And then we look at informed optimism. And then we have success and fulfillment at the end. Now, all of this is done over a time curve, and obviously how long it takes depends on what you do. But realistically, this is what we are doing. This is the emotional cycle of change. And every single one of us goes through this all the time. So what are they? Let's dive into them in more detail. Let's go straight into the first one. So the first one you have is uninformed optimism. Okay, so uninformed optimism is quite an interesting place, because uninformed optimism is when you see something that you think you know. So you might come across something new. You've never, ever experienced it before. And you go, do you know what? I'm going to give that a go. That doesn't look that hard. That is what we call uninformed optimism. Let's take digital marketing, Facebook marketing, for example. And going, that looks easy, I could do that. And then you dive into it head first and you think, I can do that, it's not that difficult. This is what we call, like I said, the uninformed optimism phase. Now, the reality is, what happens as you move through that, you don't know much about that specific topic, that specific thing. So you think, I can do that. It looks easy. Other people are making it look easy. So you dive in and you're filled with hopes and dreams. What then happens, though, is you can move through to what we call, once you've hit that phase, you'll move through to the next phase. And the next phase is what we call informed pessimism. So informed pessimism is when all of a sudden you now know what has happened. All of a sudden you know what's going on. You're not uninformed anymore. You're getting informed and you're realizing, wait a minute. So Facebook ads, for example, wait a minute, this is harder than I expected. This is actually, this is a bit more difficult. I might have misjudged this. And this is really, really important to understand, because this is where many people, this is like where it starts to kind of feel like, oh, I don't know, this is hard. And you're starting to move towards overwhelm. Okay? Because you're thinking, I don't know if this is worth it. This is quite difficult. And that is absolutely standard. That's where you'll go. Now, what the reality is it what the next phase of that will happen? And you have to go through all these phases. Remember this. So you can't just skip one. You have to move through every single phase. How you get through it and when you're aware of it, that depends on different people, but knowing it is going to help you understand this is what you're going through. So once you've gone through that phase, you will move to the valley of despair. Now, I love this term because it is just so visceral. It's so graphic that it is true. The valley of despair. This is the lowest point in any emotional cycle of change. Any emotional cycle of change is the lowest point. And the reality is the reason why it's so low is because at this point, this is overwhelm. When you ever feel overwhelmed, you will hear people say, I'm overwhelmed. I can't deal with this anymore. This is too hard. That is the valley of despair. And this, funnily enough, was where I was yesterday when I was talking to my wife. This is where I am right now, filming this for what I'm doing. But I'm understanding, I identified the problem, and I'm not going to do the feedback loop. I'm going to push. But this is what's really interesting for yourself is when you're in the valley of despair, this is where it's overwhelmed. I can't do this. This is terrible. Why did I do this? Like, there's no positive in this situation. You just look at it and think, wow, like this is a really bad decision. How did I end up in this spot? And that is understandable. Sit in that and own that, okay? Because you have to. If you don't own that, then you'll end up in this negative feedback loop, which is what we'll cover at the end of the episode. But if you do that, you push through. When you push through, you will move through to what we call the informed optimism. So if you push through that emotional cycle of change, you push through that negative bit, you push through the valley of despair, you slay that dragon, you will push through and you'll move forward to what we call the stage 4, which is the informed optimism phase, which is you understand now, you know a bit more, you know a lot more because you've gone through the highs and the lows, and you're coming out the other side and you're a lot more informed and you understand what is required in order to be successful, and you've seen some results and you start to feel a little bit more informed and you're starting to rise again. This is the stage 4. Now, when you move through to stage 4, once you've done that, you keep pushing on stage 4, you will move to stage 5, which is success and fulfillment. In other words, you've done it. You achieved what you wanted to achieve. It's happened. And you're happy about that. That is success and fulfillment. That is a really, really good part of the phase. It's the final phase of the emotional cycle of change. Okay. But, and I might hear you say, but what do you do? Okay. So realistically, with this, that is stage 5. That is fulfillment. You want to hit fulfillment. But what is this negative feedback loop I talk about? Because where most people go wrong, that's what it is. I've explained it for you. I've explained the emotional cycle of change as I said I would. But what is the problems with it? Where are the pitfalls? What do you need to look out for? Well, you need to look out for this negative feedback loop. Now, this negative feedback loop is something quite common. And this negative feedback loop is where people start at stage 1, the uninformed optimism. They take on something new. This is what happens. They'll take on something new and they'll say, I know, I want to do Facebook marketing. Like, okay, this is, I'm going to do Facebook marketing. This looks really easy. I've seen loads of people getting leads and generating business from this. We can do this. They do it. Then they realize they move to stage 2 and they go, oh, wow, wait a minute, this is a lot harder than I expected. This is difficult. So they're into stage 2. Then they go into the third phase, stage 3 of valley of despair, which is the overwhelm, the overbearing stage. They get overwhelmed. It becomes too hard. And then what normally happens is shiny object syndrome kicks in, where something new comes along. And you see this with digital marketers. You see this with everybody. We're all doing this, where you're trying something. Now, this might, obviously, it depends on what you're doing, but you're trying something and you think that realistically, what you're doing is wrong. Someone else comes along and says, you're doing Facebook marketing. Don't do Facebook marketing. Come along and try YouTube. What will happen is you will move right back to the top if you can't push through. And you move back to the top and you go, oh, yeah, YouTube will fix my problems. And you move up and you go, I know, I'm going to do that. And YouTube's the best. Where are we now? If I'm saying that, if I'm going, Facebook marketing sucks and YouTube is the best, where are we? We're right back at uninformed optimism. And then we go, oh, YouTube is actually quite hard. It takes quite a lot of work to do. oh, wait a minute, YouTube, I'm getting nothing from YouTube. And then someone comes along, LinkedIn marketing. LinkedIn marketing is the best thing for your business. Oh my gosh, you're so right. LinkedIn marketing is easy. Boom, we're right back again at stage 1. And we move through. And a lot of people go through their entire life with this. This looks really great. This is jobs applications. This is everything. But specifically when we're talking about marketing and building your brand and building something worth happening, the key to success is about slaying this dragon. You need to slay the valley of despair and push through. When you push through, you are going to get to where you want to go. When you push through, things are going to happen. You will reach that success and fulfillment if you are strong enough to push through. But 93% of people will never push through and reach that level. Never. They'll never slay that dragon. They'll never go through the valley of despair. They'll get caught in this negative feedback loop, and they'll do it over and over and over and over again. Now, this loop might take a week. It might take a year. It might take 5 years. It doesn't really matter, but it will keep going, and you will keep doing it. And so being aware of this stuff is really, really important. I get asked this quite a lot, where people will say, what has this got to do with branding and marketing? It has everything to do with building impact and building your income online, because you need to know the results come from consistency and patience. And when that happens, and when you can combine these, you need to understand the psychology behind this stuff. The emotional cycle of change is vital. When you understand the game, the field, the pitch in which you're playing, you know the rules of the game. And the rules of the game is you cannot get past. You got to pay the boatman. You can't get past. You can't just jump straight to success and fulfillment. You just can't. And no matter what coach will tell you can, no matter what person I see, people, why not pay a coach to come along and we'll just skip all that problems? You don't skip the problems, because those problems will find their way, because it's a natural way of gaining something. The juice has got to be worth the squeeze, and only the mission of going through these things is what makes you good. Success and fulfillment doesn't come. Otherwise, you jump from uninformed pessimism to success and fulfillment. We've all met somebody who, was good at something naturally, and they didn't understand the grind and didn't respect the craft of how hard it was to actually get that thing. We all know them. We all know someone. And then that happens, they won't stick at it. So this is the emotional cycle of change. Okay, that is that's it explained. If you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to me. You can leave comments if you're watching it live. If you listen to the podcast, feel free to email me, info@borland.com. Always happy to answer any questions people have with regards to this stuff, obviously given time and stuff. If you want to take your business to the next level, you want to learn about how to brand yourself properly, check out my free personal branding masterclass. The link is in the description. That'll teach you the 3 basic principles of personal branding, examples of successful personal brands, and also what personal branding is officially, actually not what people think it is, but actually what it is. Feel free to check that out. As always, my name's Ash Borland, and I will see you next time. Bye.